I think the back row for the first test is going to be Curry, Falatau and Tyke Byrne.
You say you think, would you pick the same?
I'd pick that on just currently what's happened. And then I'd definitely have Hamish on the bench.
Crouch, bind, set.
Joe presents The House of Rugby, powered by Vodafone.
So, Shawnee, is it coming home, mate?
If I hear that name, I'll absolutely reef someone.
Is that because you hate football, or just being Irish, you hate England?
No, it's actually the thought behind the whole. It's coming home. I can't do it properly, but everyone is saying it, and it's pretty annoying. I'd rather just watch the football. And but the best of luck to England, in fairness, to haven't won a serious competition in I don't know how many years. So I'm hoping to do it.
Yeah, well, there we are. It might be. Fingers crossed for us. But welcome to House of Rugby. This is episode 3. What was your weekend like, pal?
I had actually a very, very good weekend. I went to haven't been to the race in a while, so I went to Sandown. Put on a few small bets, won a small few bob, and had a great time with a few mates.
Any inside tips before you were there, or
no? There wasn't, but I spotted this Sonny Liston was a horse. Wasn't a favourite or anything, and I just liked the name. Backed him, 50 bob on the nose. Got back about 620, I think. So it was an absolute cracker. So we had a lovely day. We had a lovely day, to be fair.
Well, we're lucky to have Tom Croft here. I think you meant to introduce him, pal. So
I think
our chat's over now.
I was about to get to that, so I was. But I thought our conversation was still running.
Oh.
Don't want me, lads. I'll just sit here. It's fine.
Well, we'll introduce you now,
It's
Tom.
nice to be here.
Leicester and England and British and Irish Lions. Tom Croft is with us tonight. Welcome, Tom.
Good to see you, lads. Nice to be out at Leicester. You know, us Leicester boys stick to our own, so I'm in the big smoke. Who'd have thunk it?
You claustrophobic, or you're?
I'm a little bit nervous. I'm sweaty. Train coming down. Some weird taxi called Alison Lee. Never heard it before, but it's all good, mate. Yeah.
What have you been up to this weekend, mate? Did you catch the Lions at all?
I did. As you probably know, I'm not a big rugby watcher, but it's the Lions. It's 12 years since I was last there, and it's nice to see the boys starting off against the Golden Lions. And I'm pretty excited, actually.
Nice. Shawnee, your dogs, you got the second one over yet, mate? Or is
no, I'm heading home this week now. I'm bringing back Drake with me, so that's the black
Drake,
lab.
is that?
Yeah, he's the black Labrador. So he's coming back. I'm getting the ferry on Wednesday or Thursday, and then I'm back a week later or 10 days later. So he'll come back with me. So I'll have 2 dogs in the flat with me, and exciting times ahead.
Nice. And you're not going to try and sell that app to me anymore, are you? Gun Dog, is it?
Well, it's actually
you got
really,
shares in that, because
while
as soon as you sent that to me, I thought
I don't have shares
in it.
I'm just genuinely, it's the best way to train any type of dog. It doesn't have to be a gun dog. It's just the simplest way, and I've done it with Zeus, the Cocker Spaniel, since he was a pup, and he's literally the most obedient dog in Tennington. Fact. By the way, everyone says it to me. So
really? Okay.
It's a very good app, the Gun Dog app.
All right, well, maybe I'll get it onto it. Little Cookie is a week old at my house. And
Cookie, your dog's called Cookie.
Yeah,
nice.
Say
no more.
Alex definitely picked that name, didn't you?
Well, she's a little dachshund, and she's chocolate coloured with a little tan.
Little handbag dog.
Well, I'm in London, I don't have all the countryside like yourself.
That's what you do in London, to be fair, yeah.
And she's a beaut, to be fair, very cute and very cuddly, just not ideal at night time, as we established.
This is not the conversation I was expecting on House of Rugby.
You had to check the name there.
Yeah,
so
I did actually.
How many other podcasts are this week, is it?
Loads.
Fair enough. Well, we'll get on to the game then, because Crofty's obviously needs to get back to Leicestershire, late night. What time's the last train?
I think it's quarter 2. Let's go. Crack on.
Thoughts on the game? What did we learn, boys?
It was a good start. Putting the game in Murrayfield to one side, I think it's where we started in 2009 against the Lions. It was Golden Lions back then, Sigma Lions now. It wasn't about showing too much. I think what you saw last night won't be what you see in sort of a couple of weeks' time in terms of how we're going to approach the set pieces. There was a lot of very quick line-outs, a lot of balls over the top to Harris. In terms of boys putting their hands up from the outset, Hamish Watson, obviously fellow Oakham boy,
have to plug
carrying on the tradition.
Yeah.
Toje Laws, those boys I think were standout. Josh Adams, there's a lot of guys who've always played well for their country. I think they've really stepped up another notch. Lions is about setting a standard and letting the boys the following game try and surpass it. So it's a good start for the boys.
Yeah, it's always a weird one, the first few games in the Lions series, I think. I was just saying earlier, it's probably in 2017 it was the Crusaders game that really was like a first test match as such, where it went to another level. The intensity of the way we were playing and what we were about and how we were going to play against the All Blacks. So I presume it's very similar now. It's kind of the same kind of traits. They've had 2 games now to warm in, 2 different teams, massive amount of changes, 7 or 8 changes last weekend, maybe a bit more actually, and still some standout performance as well. You talk about Hamish Watson, I thought he was unbelievable again. I thought Chris Harris put his hand up, someone who there's been a lot of talk about, about him being in the squad, etc. But very dangerous with the ball in his hand. Something we haven't seen a whole lot of him probably do with Gloucester, because he's defensively so sound. It's not going to set the world alight just yet, the tour, but they're building and lads are getting game time. I did think there's a few things that we've seen yesterday that I thought Finn was a little bit loose at times, and he's going to be like that because he has that X factor. But is it going to be a problem when it gets into the big stuff? Because
but on that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a lot of talk about Finn and Owen playing together, how that would go. I personally thought, it wasn't a match made in heaven. I thought if you're going to go down that route, you have to have a very big 13 or a big winger playing, like you see England did it with Ford, Farrell and Manu. In the last Lions, you had Sexton, Farrell, and you had Jonathan Davis, to do a lot of the ball carrying. Interesting to see what your thoughts on that and how you saw it go out, really.
I mean, you're asking me to comment on the backs. I mean, let's face it, I did the line out and stood out wide on the width waiting for the ball to come back to me. So I actually thought it worked okay. I thought Finn and Farrell actually swapped and were interchangeable in terms of Faz stepping up at 10 when Finn was going out the back. So I think in terms of that, it probably did work. South Africa having the unexpected against them was probably actually a good idea. What they're going to bring. So they showed it against Georgia. They're going to be powerful. They're going to be set piece orientated and try and take you apart as they have done over the last 10, 15 years. So I think showing something different will potentially outwit them. There's some guys in there that, again, like I say, haven't had a huge amount of international experience. Again, they're the sort of players who are going to shine because they're not known. I think guys shine who aren't known, and especially on the international stage, this tour could be the making of them.
But against South Africa, you still have to do the basics well. You have to get over the gain line first and foremost, and you have to defend Delindi or whoever's coming around the corner after that. The gain line's so important, and I think it's just something to look going forward. Having both of them, I think, is a luxury at this stage.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a bad idea to put them there, obviously, to try them, because it could happen down the line. I just think it was a little bit of misread. Finn double pumped a few times like he does at the line. Faz overran him once or twice. A few small bits like that. And they haven't, to be fair, they're actually training together probably only a week because they arrived late, etc. So, and as a combination, probably only since Monday or Tuesday of last week. So there's a few bits like that, I think, that they'll get it right, but they just need to get used to each other. And you could see some of the mistakes they made as a 10-12, for instance. But I thought when Faz went in at 10 in that last 20 of the game, we started to play a little bit more, balls out the back. He had the ship running a little bit more smoothly, I thought. And that's what I'm saying, is Finn, is he going to control those bits and pieces when the real pressure is on?
Yeah, I think for me, and obviously I'm biased, but I thought when Farrell was at 10, Elliot Daly came on, we did look really dangerous. Now, I'm pretty sure if Finn had been at 10 then and Farrell had gone off, then it would have been pretty similar as well. I just think that it worked really well. You had Harris carrying, you had Elliot playing out wide, using his ball playing, and we looked really dangerous. But I guess, do we think that Faz is going to play 10 next week, or is he going to continue at 12 on the game on Wednesday?
I don't know, in terms of turnaround, obviously you've got the Sharks coming up. I think there was a fair bit of pressure on Finn's shoulders. He was selected, he was seen as this maverick, a bit of a loose player, over and above someone like Sexton, he's proved himself on the international stage. So there was probably some pressure on Finn. The double pumping, as you say, was probably a result of him just sort of trying to find his way in this. And as I say, it was the first game. You're at altitude. I remember playing the first training session in Johannesburg. I wasn't aware we were at altitude. I remember training thinking, Jesus Christ, I'm absolutely blown out my ball, literally out my bollocks.
Thought you were in Leicestershire, did you?
Yeah, literally. I thought I could see the sea. And so I couldn't work out why I was dying. So for the first game in South Africa, being in Joburg, the boys have been absolutely blowing. I remember in 2009, Steve Ferris went from R22 and ran the length of the pitch and almost had a heart attack in the trial. You remember? Yeah. It was unbelievable. So you've got to forgive boys for potential, not thinking, because once you're out of oxygen, trying to think. Guys, I struggled at ground level, let alone being 10,000 metres, but it's not 10,000 metres at all, but whatever many metres you are above sea level, it is bloody tough.
Yeah, see, I suppose it's easy for us to sit here now and dissect the game and stuff, but that is a major point in the whole thing, playing at altitude, first game, especially the first 15, 20 minutes into something like that, and then the last 15 or 20 as well, if you're still on the field at that stage. But he did, in fairness to him, he pulled off some glorious touches as well. I've kind of this thing is where does he get the balance right? Especially just because he can produce a piece of brilliance, but in these test games you have to be so calculated about it, especially against the world champions.
I think it's so hard because there's no one in the world better at the kick pass. His little chips, his ability to throw those flat passes is exceptional. But then, knowing Warren Gatland without getting the whole of Scotland on my back, it's more knowing Gatland, and you guys know him better than me, but when he's trying to run it from his own post and he gets intercepted and it gets a bit too loose, he doesn't strike me as the sort of person who's going to want that fly half. The Dan Biggar, Owen Farrell kind of fly half. That's what he wants. Someone more solid who's going to run the ship, keep everyone moving, control the game, and make their kicks. And Finn's the opposite, and he kind of knows he's not bigger and not foul, so he's gone, well, I'm going to go and play the Joker card even more and double down on the crossfield kicks, the chips, the long passes, the maverick plays, and I guess that we'll see what happens. But moving on to the back row, obviously you mentioned Hamish. What was it that stood out for you guys, or why he was so good?
I just think everything went before the tour saying, is Hamish big enough, which is just a load of rubbish. I thought that whole size thing had gone out when Backy was playing. The way Hamish just, from minute one, was just, he's a physical, the size of him. It makes you look small. You're a sizable lump, when you're drinking on the beer. And,
He's only plays 10 minutes a week at Irish, so he does get big.
He's on the watt bike for the other 80, I just thought the way he handled himself, the way he got involved with the game, the hits he was making, the way he carried. He was a nuisance. He's your typical sort of seven. I think the whole thing about, is he big enough? It's just a load of rubbish. It's just, he was class. It's been sweet to him before the game. Little tap on the backside after the game. He's just, for me, he is that nailed in seven. But it's obviously how that then works with the dynamics of the rest of the back row options you've got. Because I know it's been one game, he was class. You've got a raft of the players coming through. Yeah,
and then you do, I thought he was class yesterday as well. I just thought his general work rate. He's still 105 kilos. Everyone thinks he's lighter than that. He's still, that's
it's 10 in the mullet though, isn't it?
Yeah, but he was effective in his carry. He was effective in defence yesterday. He worked incredibly hard. Then I kind of, if you're looking at it from a test starter, you're saying to yourself, right, he has his hand up in the air now. But then you look at the opposition yesterday as well, and you think, where are they in compared to, let's say, Wednesday when they play the Sharks? Who's, let's say, Tom Curry going to be coming up against? What type of back row are they going to have? And then, you say yesterday, looking at Hamish, that he's thereabouts now. But then Curry, you know what he's been about the last 2 years, and this is going to be his first game in the 7 shirt for the Lions. So competition is mega there at the minute. Yeah, absolutely mega.
Because you said, a couple of weeks ago, you said Tom Curry was nailed on number 7, and you love Tipperick and you love Watson. Has that changed from the weekend? And for yourself, what would be your back row dynamic?
I definitely think it's changed a little bit from in my own head anyway. I think Hamish put his hand up now. I did think the way Tom was playing, he was just untouchable in terms of his physicality, his turnover rate. And Gats is going to look at this stuff. It's like Ty Byrne at 6. No one's really said much about him at 6, but he's the most turnovers in the Six Nations, for instance. And he's you know what I mean? He's effective in what he does. He's a nuisance around the place. And would you have Watson and Curry together? Probably not, to be fair, because you're going to miss out on someone like Courtney, or whoever's in the row, and then you might have Courtney at 6 as another lineup option, especially against what way we're going to try and play in these tests, which is going to be confrontational first and foremost. And you want to dominate your set piece and have weight there. So
first test for you, who would be your back row?
I think the back row for the first test is going to be Curry, Faletau and Ty Byrne.
And would you pick the same?
I'd pick that on just currently what's happened, and then I'd definitely have Hamish on the bench, and then a back row, second row probably.
And you, Crofty?
it's one game in. It's really hard to say. As you said, Curry will play his first game, hopefully on Wednesday. First time on the Lions shirt, and he'll go absolutely hell for leather. The best place that Gats can be in a few weeks' time picking a test team is not having a clue which way to go. That's a great way in terms of competition within the squad. It also stops there being a divide. You don't want the veg disappearing off on a sort of a midweek jolly because the test team are playing. You want competition to be till the Friday night and the coaches are pulling their hair out. I was that impressed with Hamish yesterday that I think he should be in there. I was impressed with how Lawsy went. And then you're back in terms of your number 8. Simmons needs a shot. I said about the unknown in terms of players coming in. South Africa not really knowing what he's about, bar watching him, what he's done for Exeter. He could be a real wild card to throw in there. And then if you approach it the way that Eddie Jones has approached England, it's not about having a guy on the bench. It's a finisher. I hate the whole term being a finisher, as I'm sure. I don't know if you were even involved with England when it was called finishers.
I was in the wider squad, mate, and just holding tackle pads.
Yeah.
I wasn't really there. Yeah.
He was for the boys. He was finishing training.
You were popping over on the Tuesday like the rest of us.
Yeah.
I think, having, say, maybe a Watson starting and a Curry coming on or vice versa, I think the pressure on being that starter has disappeared. I think it's a full 23-man squad.
We had Adam Jones on here a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how Gats will look at training more than anyone else in terms of selection, what they're doing day in, day out, not just on the games. So do you think that plays into the sort of form more than reputation? Or do you think Gatland will go, well, we don't know how strong the midweek games are, so you have to still pick on reputation? Like if Curry doesn't play that well on Wednesday, but he's been so good in the Six Nations and for the last year, does he get picked? Or
I actually don't think he does, because you could say that about, let's say, me and Warbs when we were battling it out as well, because he was like, he picked us for the last test together, but before that he was like, right, well, you've played better, so you're going to start. So I think he picks on what he sees there and then, to be fair to Gats. And if Tom doesn't play well during the week, it's Hamish is in the number 1 spot in my opinion then, like. But I'm just saying, the way Tom has played, I can't see him having really that bad game as such, and not doing what he's done now consistently over the last 2 seasons. Like, he's been outstanding. So, but I do think Gats picks on what he sees there and then. I don't think he sometimes has perception. It's like dropping O'Driscoll, like, for instance. He doesn't mind making big calls. Whether that be a player who's been unbelievable during the Six Nations or for the last 2 seasons, if they're not unbelievable right there and then, you're not going to be in the team.
And I guess on that, someone who's played 2 games now, played unbelievably well, Josh Adams, scored 4 tries. I know a lot of them you'd say, you could hobble over with your one hip for some of them, but I thought he's been very impressive so far. As a back 3, Reece Zammit for me, he's lightning quick. He can do things with the ball which others can't, but he needs the ball to come to him. And I think some of the other wingers can go looking for it better and such. And I feel like he still needs a big game if he wants to get himself in the test team. And Hogg was solid, but we didn't quite see him at his perhaps best. And whether that's the captaincy or not, he wasn't at his counter-attacking best. He wasn't getting in those wide channels and beating men as much as you'd want to see from him, really.
I love this is the way that rugby's gone. That is asking 2 forwards to diagnose the back play.
We are pretty skillful.
We are.
You spent a bit of time in the wide channel. Come on, Crofty, your highlights reel is unbelievable.
I was 15 when I was 16.
Really?
Yes. So I know a bit about back 3 play.
I saw a picture of you when you were younger the other day. You didn't look slim, pal. Christ, you've done well. I'll tell you what, you've made the most out of that rig.
I didn't kick a whole lot.
Straight truck back, was it rugby league?
But I think in terms of the backs, I think Josh Adams, not only 4 tries, say some of them were Wilkins, but his kick chase off the box kicks was superb. In terms of Hoggy, maybe the couple of games he didn't start for Exeter in the back end of the season, maybe sort of stumbled his form a little bit. But I thought in terms of his work rate, his ability, that chasing down, he was chasing down at number 8 at the end, but still made that tackle, the turnover, regathered the ball. So the class is there. I think for me, Hoggy's the starting 15. Josh Adams, for Lewis on your other wing, I'm sure as a wing you'd be pretty annoyed that all the love's going to one wing. He gets 1 kick, 1 score, pretty decent. You're still a Lions a Lions scorer. So I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's the first game, the first real game, ignoring Murrayfield. There's a lot going on. The Sharks on Wednesday will be a huge test for the boys.
We haven't brought you along just to sit on the fence, mate, so we want your opinion. It's the first game.
I think the other thing with Josh Adams is that Gats said afterwards in his interview was quite interesting. So he's been the top try scorer in every competition he's been in the last 5 seasons. Josh Adams has, which is quite impressive because he was in the championship, wasn't he, for a while?
A while back, but even in the Premiership, he
was a top try scorer back then.
He came from nowhere,
yeah.
and he's a real finisher. And sometimes when he first came on, people were a bit shocked. Like, he's quite quick, he's quite strong and stuff, but he finds himself really well on those positions to score tries, and it is a knack.
Yeah, and he's brave, and he's and you know what I mean. He puts himself about as well. He's quite tough lad by all accounts. So I genuinely think he's nailed on. I think he's nailed on the wing. And I know there's other lads, like you have Watson, you have all these boys come back in now as well in the week, like, but I just think Gats loves him. I think he really, really loves what he's about and his try scoring ability. And he does have his few favourites, to be fair to him. So
100%. I think it will be if you're his favourite, you're in a great spot.
Yeah.
Unless you do something proper stupid and
don't break COVID.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the risk. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got a quote here from Gatland. It's interesting to see you guys have been under him, with his mind games and everything. He said afterwards that we haven't come here just to make up the numbers, even though there are a few journalists writing us off saying we're going to get hammered. So hopefully we can keep improving. Is that just him with classic mind games, or is it because? What have you seen in the press that's sort of backs it up, really? I don't know.
I'd say it's a fairly dismissive comment from him, wanting just to take the light away from the Lions squad. They're in a bubble. It's a real strange tour this year. There's no fans. They're basically staying in one hotel. They're in a group. They won't be seeing things. It's a strange environment to be in. But if Lions are the underdogs, happy days. That's a great position to be in. The boys know the squad, how good they are. They can go out there, they can win every single game midweeker and lead themselves into the test and absolutely go hell for leather at the box, who haven't played a huge amount of rugby since the World Cup final. So is it Gats just doing a bit of an Eddie Jones, just playing a straight back, take the attention away from the team, potentially?
Yeah, definitely. I think exactly. I think if you hit the nail on the head, Crofty. And the other thing about it is, within the camp as well, the boys will know what Gats has been saying in terms of the media. Like, it's such a small bubble now at the minute. Some lads don't look at it at all, but I think it's going to be hard to get away from it now with the way things are. And they'll use it as a little bit of motivation. I think there's a few boys in there that'll use that little bit of firepower when it comes to it. They shut a few people up. So I don't think it's been too bad, to be fair, any of the media stuff that's gone out there. He's definitely trying to take a bit of pressure and a bit of heat away from the squad.
You heard it here from you two.
Must be true then.
Heard it here first.
Yeah. Well, look, if the viewers and listeners want to head over to the official British and Irish Lions app, powered by Vodafone, they can select their starting 15 for the first test. Crofty wants to sit on the fence a bit longer, clearly, but others can crack on. There's also the ability for fans to select their player of the series. After each game, users can vote for players with points going forward towards the overall player of the series. So after yesterday's game, who are the contenders, and also who is your player of the game? So who is your man of the match for yesterday?
Oh, I genuinely would have given it to Watson, to be honest.
We're happy.
Yeah.
He's Oakham boy, so we're very happy with that.
I definitely think Watson, just his overall performance was outstanding.
Crofty?
Yeah. Echo his comments. Oakham boy, you got to stick with him. It was class. He stepped up. First game, he set the level for Curry to chase, and hopefully Curry goes above that. And it makes a real interesting dilemma for Gatland.
Well, make sure you head down to the official British and Irish Lions app and get your votes in. So let's bring in our Bocca on the ground, Sculpt Brits. How are you, mate?
I'm fantastic, guys. Hello.
Yeah, we've got Tom Croft here, so you would have played against him a few times.
How you doing, mate?
Hello, bud. He's given us a lot of hard times, Goody, during our careers.
He has. When that Leicester dominance was there, it was tough. But let's get back to you and the family. Obviously, we saw on Instagram the kids were all singing the national anthem. Did you teach them the words, or were they just singing along with the tune?
It's just the tune is so catchy, But actually, they first got to know God Save the Queen, and we've got a shoot tomorrow. Walking up Lions Head, and Christian asked if he can wear his Lions shirts. I said, no, way you're wearing a Lions shirt. As you are proudly South African, you're supporting only one team, and that's the Boks. Do not put that Lions shirt for the next 2 months. Do not put that on.
He obviously wants to pick the winner. He knows that. So, well done to him. But on to South Africa. It was a slow start, was it, for them? But they came through well against Georgia. What were your thoughts on the game?
I think they were quite nervous, Goody. It's the first time they've played together since the World Cup. I think they put a very high expectation on their performance. Started very slow, for me, quite nervous. Made a lot of unforced errors. But for me, there was, first of all, it was a game. It's a start of Jacques coaching as head coach. Rassie was there as well, so things internally won't change much. But it was nice for the boys to run out. It's a start, and hopefully they'll build on this weekend, and then hopefully they'll be okay when the first test comes against the Lions, because that's actually the only game that matters, is the test against the Lions.
What have you learned from the game yesterday? What players maybe stood out to you? Who did you think was sharp? Who was a little bit behind the 8 ball maybe?
For me, I thought they're going to play C at 8. Playing Kwacha is a bit different to what Dwayne brings. I must say Bongi played extremely well. The same with Eben. The Eben and Franco combination works. Although I think Luet brings a different dimension. Then you've got Peter Stev that didn't play for almost 18 months with a very bad injury, and he was just the normal Peter Stev the tour that I could remember from the World Cup. For me, Kobus brought a spark from 9 perspective, so it's going to be interesting to see who they're going to pick at 9. Is it going to be Fafa? Will Fafa come in or just slot in? Fassi as a fullback played out of position. They played him on wing. What a phenomenal rugby player. I think he brings a different dimension, especially with Willie there. On high balls we'll get peppered by the Lions, so we want to be great in the air. And then for me, a guy that stood out was Damon Villens coming off the bench. Maybe he can play the same kind of role that Frans Steyn played during the World Cup, if we want to go with our 5-2 splits. So that would be interesting. It was nice to see Jasper getting his first cap. But I think Ox, Bongi, and Trevor did a great job. And then with Malcolm, Stephen and Frans coming off the bench, they brought that dominance again from a forward perspective. I do think we still miss a guy like Ergia and Luet. Because the big secret, we think, from our win in the World Cup was actually our bench. Things were quite tight normally from minute till minute 50, and when we brought on the bomb squad, they opened up the game.
But obviously, you haven't had much time together. It's been a long time since South Africa have played. As a first hit out, what was the sort of media reaction across the country really from it?
I think when I spoke to the guys that was at the game itself, the commentators and the players, it's just extremely weird playing a test match in front of no crowds. I mean, that's one of the things in South Africa. The crowds do get involved quite a bit. You could hear Jesse Creel screaming on the mic, even watching the game, because he does organise the defence quite a bit. So I think they'll tick the box and said it was the first out. We need to limit the unforced errors and get a bit of momentum. But as a team, I think they want to build on this, as I said, and improve next weekend. But if we as ex-rugby players or supporters look at the game, we weren't up to scratch if you compare that to the Lions that played against the Lions this weekend. The game, the physicality, the way they ran their plays was quite, for me, was good.
And obviously for the Lions, they've got the Sharks up on Wednesday. Do you expect a similar test as the Lions had last weekend, or a tougher test?
I think that from the Lions' perspective, they couldn't play their best squad. I think the Sharks will be a bit tougher than the Lions, but not to the standard that actually the Lions want. For me, I hope the Lions get overconfident playing against these sides, because it's not the same. We can't play our international. We've got the biggest squad of players that's in the camp at the Springboks, so that means lesser of a squad in the local games. So from that perspective, in 2009, we could almost pick our best sides, bar the Springboks. Now the squad is bigger. There's less depth, more players playing abroad. So a very inexperienced provincial sides playing against a very experienced Lions side. So I think not much will change. We'll put a fight up till about minute 50, and then the Lions will slowly but surely dominate the game.
How you doing, mate? Just a quick one from myself. Who do you think is going to be the toughest sort of provincial game prior to the test starting? So where can, I suppose, the Lions fans sort of say, well, if the boys go well in that game, they're in a good stead for the test matches?
I think the game they need to look at to see if they want to get measured is actually the SAA side, to see where they are. Provincially, it is actually either the Sharks or the Bulls, but once again, they've both lost a lot of players to the Springbok squad. So for me, it's the provincial games is making sure they get their formations right, players stay match fit and sharp. But I think the SAA game at Newlands will be the first test to see where they are. And then, they've played, just come from a long European season. So they'll be sharp. We need to sharpen up. So I think, once again, Tom, it's that SAA side.
Schalke, will Sneeman be a big loss? As there is reports over this side that he mightn't actually be fit for the actual tests.
Well, he's a massive loss. I haven't played with an athlete like that. He's, I think, 6'7", 6'8". He weighs 125. He ran the 100 and close to 11 or just under 11. He's truly an athlete. He's just a phenomenal athlete. He will be massively missed in our squad. He's, as I read in the newspapers today, he went for skin graft. So yes, a player like that will be missed.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you play with fire in Ireland.
Sorry, just to interrupt.
I was about to say, I don't know a rugby player who doesn't run 11
the
seconds.
Irish don't know anything about a fire, that's why.
Pouring petrol on a fire is never a good idea. Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, it's hey, sometimes you need to light the fire, I say.
Sculler, it's been great chatting to you. Thanks for giving us a lowdown on what's going on in South Africa, and we look forward to hearing from you next week.
Thanks, guys. Lots of love. Thank you for the chats, and have a good night.
Okay, as we've heard, boys, from Schalke, he mentioned 2009. What's your memories, Tom, from 2009? Give us a little bit of an insight of what it's like over there in South Africa's backyard.
To be fair, I've actually had to watch the DVD or the video, whatever it was, the VHS, to sort of remind myself. It wasn't until obviously the Lions started to gain momentum that I started to realise it's been 12 years, and I had to sort of remind myself. And I'd always thought the games we'd been smoked by the Boks, but we actually hadn't. It was actually quite a close series, which was actually quite nice to see. And I probably should have done some homework prior to it. But in terms of how it was, obviously I wasn't involved early on. Obviously Quinlan was selected in front of me, then he got banned. Stephen Ferris obviously then got injured in training, which probably gave myself my opportunity to start in the test matches. So for me, I was 23 years old, proper sort of rabbit in headlights, surrounded by guys who I'd come up through school watching play, and I was probably pretty timid, scared of messing up, didn't want to let the team down. And so obviously being selected in the first test match, I was proper shit myself.
You were like a rabbit, weren't you? When you were scoring those two tries, you were running like one.
To be fair, I think the two tries sort of totaled exactly about 10 metres in terms of running yards, and most of that's come from Drico and Doc. So no, for me it was just it would always be the highlight. Obviously 2013, obviously meeting yourself, obviously that was a highlight. But 2009 will always be the one which I say is the pinnacle, whether it was to do with my age, the fact that the Lions hadn't been in a great place in 2005 following the New Zealand tour. We lost the two first tests, apparently quite closely, as I found out by watching the DVD. And obviously winning that last test, Oogs going the length, giving it the big into the crowd and all that, it was just an incredible experience. Probably how it came around, having, I probably got caught up with the media hype prior to selection, thinking, well, Stuart Barnes has said that I'm in. so I must be into the squad.
Yeah.
And then I remember it getting announced at training. Harry Ellis got selected and I didn't. And Cocker just gave us a tap on the backside and said, right, let's crack on. We were obviously playing Leinster in the final up in Edinburgh against you boys, which obviously we lost. But it wasn't a lot of time to compute what was going on. So by the time we played the final and focused on that, then went out in Edinburgh for a few drinks. We flew down to Pennyhill Park, and I think that afternoon we were off to South Africa. So you didn't actually have the time to think what was going on for the nerves to sort of build. And then, apart from not realising you weren't at sea level when you're actually 10,000 metres up in the air, it all came very, very quickly. And I was surrounded by guys I've been watching for years. So it was, it was class.
One of the things that we have discussed quite a bit on the show as well is the off the field antics in South Africa. Like we've discussed it here with different guests as well, of how much is that going to be missed? How much crack did you have in 09 out there? How fun was it? Like off the field, together in the team rooms, the fans, everything. I think it's going to be there's obviously going to be a huge factor on this tour, not having all that.
But it's a whole different world. And in terms of off the field sort of antics, social media again put sort of pay to that. I mean, I'm not talking sort of anything sort of, dark and sordid or anything like that, but it's just things that potentially you would have done 10, 15, 20 years ago, which you probably wouldn't do now in case it got misconstrued as something wrong or inappropriate. So I think the times have changed. I mean, whenever I go to a rugby dinner, you listen to the guys like Willie John or Dean Richards talking about things, and Christ, you wouldn't get away with it.
You'd be locked up for the night. You're genuinely put in the back of a paddy wagon in a sense.
Never again.
That's the key there as you're going. So that side of thing will change. In terms of, is Lions more professional now? It probably is. I think every year it gets more and more professional. From 09 to 13, we had a good crack in 13.
Yeah.
In 17, was that different to 13 in terms of off-field? Maybe not, potentially not.
Yeah, not as much.
Coley is pretty loose. So.
Wow.
But no, I'd say this year there isn't that Red Army. There's not you won't be coming out of the hotel going to a test match and the hotel was swamped by flags. That will be different. That will be something to sort of get used to. But the guys who played a whole season in front of empty stadiums.
The boys seem to have a bit of a bond already, though. Even the tries at the weekend, you know what I mean? They've seemed very tight knit already, and that's obviously a really good thing going into what they're going into. Who was your kind of fella that you got to grips with over there in 09? Who was someone that you really got tight with over there?
To be fair, myself and Harry Ellis basically went off and played Scrabble most evenings.
Classic Leicester clique. That is so Leicester. Oh, you never change, eh? There's only two of you.
I was 23 years old. I was scared of everyone.
You should have said yes to everything.
I wasn't going up to Mr. O'Driscoll asking him to play Scrabble, was I? So I stuck with Harry. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think the boys, it won't be publicised, but presumably they've been on the piss.
Yeah,
the day one, you go on the piss. That's how you get to know each other. Day two, after the game last night, presumably they're on the piss. That was probably the biggest standout thing for me in 09 was whether you played the Saturday game, you played the midweek game, you all went out to a nightclub, you all went out to a bar, all went to a disco back in the day. Discotheque.
With the flares.
Had a few beers, with your boot cuts.
Yeah.
Had a few beers, and that's how you get to know a team. So I think what you saw last night, like you said, they've been together for however long. They've been absolutely beasted over in Jersey in the baking hot sun and having a few beers, and it's the start of a team, and it's going to look class. That's why I was going to say, do you reckon the Saffers will be concentrating on themselves purely and not looking too much into the Lions because they've been apart for so long? Do they need time to bond again? I mean, do you think they will analyse the Lions as much as they would have done in normal circumstances, or is it just about them?
I think knowing Razzie and the way he's operating in Munster and stuff, they'll have the Lions boys properly done to a fine tee before this ever got near this tour at this stage. That's how much detail he goes into in the opposition initially. I think now they'll start looking after themselves. But it's going to be an interesting tour. It'll be a nice one now come the first test. And in other things,
well, hang on.
What?
2013, you two toured together.
We're not talking about 2013.
You got any stories on Shawnee? Because everyone seems to come on here and have a story about Shawnee. And I assume you must have.
I was exactly like Tom was in 09. Very young.
Don't do the usual. Don't shout over everyone. Let him have his moment. Just be quiet, Shawnee.
He never came out of his room.
Yeah,
You didn't say
and
him.
that's where the lies start. Sean, just like you, playing Scrabble with himself, was he?
Crafty, moving on.
Yeah, you've gone very
have you-
red there, mate.
What have you been up to nowadays? What are you doing nowadays? Tell us a little bit about your life at the minute.
Obviously, it's coming soon for yourself, I presume.
Yeah.
The body's getting old. I mean,
3 more
geez, you
years,
must
3
be
more
38,
years.
39 by now. You've told I'll reach you 24 still.
Yeah.
3 years at Jersey.
I'm working for a housing developer. I retired on a Monday. I was told by the doc, you can't carry on playing. You're buggered. So I retired on a Monday. Next 3 months, I shot, I drank, didn't really do much else. No pre-planning. I was Peter Pan as far as I was concerned. I was playing forever.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, I was like, actually, I haven't got a job. And thankfully, a friend of a friend through an old Ocamian, they do come in handy. And I've gone into housing, into land buying for a housing developer, Davidson's Homes. There aren't other house builders; they are the best. Get out in there.
Quick plug down the camera lens.
Sorry.
So yeah, that camera one.
Davidson's Homes, they are the best.
Yeah, you're in the Leicestershire area. Buy a house from them.
Midlands, mate.
Midlands. Oh, sorry.
It's a completely different life for me now. Sort of not having that routine was hard to get used to. Not having that immaturity, you realise when you're retired that when you start professionally at 17, 18, your maturity stops improving or maturing. By the time you retire at 33, 34, 35, you are an 18-year-old in the real world, and you can't go into an office and plum shot someone or call someone a favourite word. It's a whole different world. But to fair the Lions being back, being involved with this, just getting back into rugby, I love it.
And you've always been a big supporter of the Matt Hampson Foundation. We've been to many events together, and part of the Davidson Homes, they've built up 2 of the lodges, is it now, at the Hambo Foundation? Is that right? Yeah,
no, Hambo's, obviously he got his big centre built, which is to help guys rehabilitate from spinal injury, sportsmen, women, even if they're not related to sport. It's a place for people to go, receive the best treatment, be around like-minded people, and actually just learn how to live with whichever way their life is taken. Now, Hambo's dream was always to have accommodation for people to come, because like he was in Stoke Mandeville, he was in hospital for 12 months. He was then sent home. Going from an able body, playing rugby, one terrible accident in a scrum, and then you can't move all by your neck. It's a life-changing thing. So Hambo wanted almost, I suppose, a halfway house almost. People can come to the centre, they can stay there with the families, with potentially new carers, and just learn to adapt. Because, I broke mine out. I spoke to Hambo a huge amount before I returned back to rugby, just to see, is it the right decision? And you see what Hambo's doing, and Christ, you do it over and over again. You'd never change the decision to come back to play rugby. So fantastic. Obviously Davidson's, who I'm involved with, offered to get involved, and have actually now helped deliver 2 fully equipped lodges to help people come to the centre. I think as soon as they're open, which is a couple of weeks, there's already 2 people destined to go in them, and they'll start their rehab journey and hopefully get home as soon as possible. So fantastic.
I think anyone who doesn't know Matt Hampson, he's so inspirational, because he had this injury which was horrendous, but he wasn't happy just getting support and funding for himself. That he went out and has helped so many other people who aren't as fortunate to have the rugby community or people behind him. And I just think it's incredible. And what you're doing is unbelievable.
Yeah,
as
mate,
well.
He's a class guy. I mean, once he got his 80-inch TV sorted, he was out helping the world. So, and he's a Lions, he's one of the Lions' official charities as well. So hopefully that name will just spread across the world and get more and more support.
No, they're doing unbelievable work, and fair play to your company and everyone else that supports as well. It's been unbelievable. Goody, moving on. You've watched a good bit of rugby over the last 24, 40 hours.
Yeah, obviously being having my sort of insight into Japanese rugby, I was needed for Channel 4 to watch the Ireland-Japan game.
She took my gig, I think.
Unfortunately, you were too pissed from Sandown, so they couldn't get hold of you. They drafted me in the last minute.
I was going down the track on horseback at that stage.
Yeah, exactly. I was over there. Heard a few more stories about you. We'll keep it off camera. God, they get worse, I tell you.
You didn't hear anything about me over there.
Stephen Ferris was very honest. Great man, by the way.
Me and my best
great
friend.
Man. He's in great nick as well. Goodness me.
He's a big boy of fezzes.
Fair play to him. But I think in the game, Japan showed us again how great they are at moving the ball. Score some unbelievable tries. I think Ireland will probably be a little bit disappointed in themselves. They weren't great. Second half, they had to kick the ball a lot and go very structured to sort of grind the game down and win it. And to the dismay of Luke Fitzgerald, who was quite critical on comms about it. But yeah, as you would know, Sean, you know him well.
Lukey he's absolutely hilarious. One of the best fellas you'll like have a conversation with because he's so opinionated. Be like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, I don't agree with you. He wants to have an argument about stuff, but he's actually very knowledgeable about rugby and life in general. But he's entertaining. That's how I describe him to be around.
I thought you might have played Scrabble with him. He's quite an intelligent bloke. Yeah, 2009.
No, he wasn't from Leicester, so he can play.
Leicester.
Didn't make the cut.
You can't spell, can you?
What about the England game?
Yeah, a lot of 12 debutants for England. Again, some of the talent on the show was unbelievable. I just think the consistency, Eddie will probably be a bit disappointed with the errors. You know, so many great half breaks or little breaks, and then just throwing those offloads you can't do in Test rugby. And pretty disappointed that USA scored 4 tries as well.
I mean, do you not think that's just down to, I think the last time there were that many debutants was 1986. I'm going to throw that. You won't check that.
Good Googling.
We'll go with that. Do you not think it's so many guys out there just wanting to prove a point that it's snatching at balls, it's trying to go that extra yard, get the miracle offload, which caused that? And on top of that, who do you think was the stand-up player?
I think there's always that over-eagerness when the first cap and you want to do well, you want to impress Eddie. And I don't think anyone played badly in that sense. I just think there was just a few times where you think if you just kept hold of it a few more phases, you would have scored. But that's part of the learning development. It's a new team. The cohesion isn't there. I was really impressed with Freddie Stewart, obviously Leicester boy. He played really well, was accomplished, very assured.
Proper full-sized fullback.
I feel very small on camera right here next to you if anyone's watching. But yeah, no, he was very good. And Marcus Smith was assured. I was impressed with Lewis Ludlow as a captain to come in and do well himself, just do his own work, his own tackles, work hard, but also lead the guys with so many new players was impressive. So there's a lot of guys who put their hand up and did well. I think for Eddie, it's looking at how they perform, how they prepare, how they train, everything about it. And hopefully, 4 or 5 of these guys will come through into the next squad.
Which is the whole idea of it. It's not 15 players getting new caps to come through. It's hopefully we'll get 3 or 4. Freddie Stewart, for example, Marcus Smith will now become a regular and start pushing the guys who have been in those spots for a long time, which hopefully will bring some good things.
Yeah, and I think obviously that's probably the difference between Ireland and England, because Ireland went as pretty much as full strength apart from Keane Healy, Sexton, maybe one other, and they weren't quite as impressive. Obviously playing a tougher team, but it probably didn't showcase for me as much as you'd want to see from some of the young guys. I don't know what you thought.
No, that's probably the thing. I think that Ireland could be missing a little bit of X factor when you take away the Jack Conans and the Johnnies, Keanes, the older crew that are there kind of now. I know Jack's not old, but you take away that element and you put in someone new. It's always been a thing that people need to bed into Ireland, like the Ireland system first and foremost. And to be fair, I will say that we only really saw Ireland expanding their game plan in that England game last year. That was the first time I've seen them throw offloads, move the point of contact from where we had been playing a lot the previous few years, because it was gone so structured that teams are just eating us up physically. And that England-Ireland game last year was the first time I've seen Ireland just move around a lot. So to bring in all the new guys that they have now as well into that squad, even though there's quite a few older guys still there, like I thought Peter Mann, he was very impressive at the weekend again. Josh van der Fleur was a machine again. But yeah, it takes a bit of time, I think. And because I suppose the differences in the provinces as well, some of the provinces try to play this unstructured rugby, some of them play a little bit more structured. Getting into that environment for the 10 days they're in there, trying to get back up to where they left off against England is going to be difficult. So I think you'll see a little bit more now this weekend coming of that more expansive type of game that they're trying to get to and trying to play a little bit more. So hopefully it happens.
And did anyone catch the Wales-Canada game?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
No.
Or New Zealand.
When's that on? When's that on?
I only saw the clip from Nick Tompkins. He put it on his social media. great footwork. So
I've got kids, mate. I'm lucky to watch the Lions.
2 dogs.
I've been playing Lego the rest of the time. So.
What are you building at the moment?
Lego Mario.
Oh,
Awesome.
That'd be
Makes
good.
little noises when you pop around.
Does it?
Yeah.
Lego's gone up in the world since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Unbelievable scenes.
I was just going back to the Tonga game, the New Zealand Tonga game. I actually watched the highlights of that.
Yeah. Very studious of you, mate.
And I to be honest with you, I felt sorry for Tonga. I don't know, the captain's interview afterwards as well is hard to watch. Just his emotion and bits and pieces like that. I don't know if they're getting probably the support they need. And like to go out and you look at in the first 12 minutes, New Zealand scored 3 tries. And it was like, you'd swear Tonga weren't coached how to defend, for instance. And that's my point. Are they getting the right people in place? Are they getting what they need as players to actually try and perform against someone like that? Or is it just a case of, right, rocking up and, right, do your best type of thing, lads? And that's basically what he said afterwards, which is tough in the rugby world that we're living in now. That we should all get good opportunities. They should have the same opportunities as everyone else. So I felt bad for them after that game. They looked dejected after, obviously, 101 points, wasn't it, to 0?
Do you think they should be exposed to that type of game, or do they need to have games to build up to
I don't think they do, especially if they're in that place where they haven't got the support they need, or they haven't got the right people in the right places right now. Like what have Tonga gotten out of that game?
Yeah, what do they do now?
What do they do?
Yeah.
So
I think because of infrastructure, though, they supply so much talent to the world, or New Zealand, us, England, Ireland, whoever, take so much of the talent. But we have to give back to grow the game. Everyone has to give to grow the game, and they need to be given, the right coaches, help with that, the training facilities, so they can fly to games and not just be shipped over last minute and struggle for games. And I think it's a big issue because the Pacific Islands don't get the support they deserve, and yet we all love to watch them. We love to see Tongans run over people, Samoans hit people hard, or Fijians step people.
Yeah.
It's one of the glories of the game, but if they don't get the support, the gap will just widen, and that's a problem for World Rugby.
correct.
So that's all we have time for this week. Tom Croft, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely to see you. Mate, good catching up.
Yes,
Lovely, always.
Yeah, and thank you for watching and listening to the House of Rugby, powered by Vodafone.
You've been watching the House of Rugby, powered by Vodafone.